Felix Mendelssohn composed his G minor piano concerto, the first of his two concertos for piano and orchestra, while he was on a tour that carried him to Italy, Switzerland, France, various parts of Germany, and to England. Leaving his family home in Berlin in the autumn of 1830, the 21-year-old Mendelssohn would not return for any length of time until the summer of 1832. His travels carried him not only to the principal musical centers of Europe, but brought him into personal contact with the leading musical personalities of the day, Berlioz, Chopin, and Liszt among them. This was no idle pleasure tour. Mendelssohn's father, Abraham Mendelssohn, had a very definite purpose in mind in sending his son on such extensive and expensive travels. Young Felix, writing to his father from Paris in February of 1832, stated what his father had designed to be the chief object of his journey. He said, "I was to examine the various countries closely and to fix on the one where I wished to live and to work. I was further to make my name and capabilities known in order that the people among whom I decided to settle should receive me well and not be wholly ignorant of my career. Finally, I was to take advantage of my good fortune and your kindness to push forward in my subsequent efforts. It makes me feel happy to be able to say that I believe this has been done. I think I have fulfilled your appointed object. People now know that I exist and that I have a purpose, and any talent that I display they are ready to approve and to accept. They have made advances to me here and asked for my music, which they seldom do. Your injunction, too, to make a choice of the country that I prefer to live in, I have carried out just as completely, at least in a general way. That country is Germany. This is a point on which I have now quite made up my mind. I cannot yet, however, decide on the particular city." Mendelssohn eventually settled in Leipzig, where he was appointed conductor of the Gewandhaus concerts in 1835. He married Cécile Jean Renaud in 1836, and most of their few remaining years were spent in Leipzig, except for the interruptions of frequent concert tours. The G minor concerto was written in 1831, and Mendelssohn played the piano in its first performance on October 17th at Munich. The work is in 3 movements, but they are continuous. The first is marked Molto Allegro con fuoco, the second Andante, and the third Molto Allegro e vivace. And now here is our guest pianist, Gary Graffman, with our conductor, Sir Georg Solti. With the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, they will play the Mendelssohn Piano Concerto No. 1, the G minor concerto, Opus 25. the Piano Concerto No. 1 in G minor, Opus 25 by Mendelssohn. Gary Graffman, the soloist, with Sir Georg Solti and the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. A vigorous handshake between soloist and conductor, then Mr. Graffman wheels about and shakes hands with concertmaster Samuel Maggott. And here for a solo bow is Gary Graffman, warmly applauded by members of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, as well as by our orchestra hall audience. Gary Graffman, one of America's most renowned pianists, born in 1928 of Russian parents, he began his musical studies at the age of 3. And here again on stage in Orchestra Hall Chicago, soloist and conductor Gary Graffman and Sir Georg Solti. Mr. Graffman asks Maestro Solti to have the members of the Chicago Symphony stand too. And as they're shaking hands, Maestro Solti sort of edges Mr. Graffman forward. Mr. Graffman wanted both of them to share in the applause, but Sir Georg asked the soloist to step forward a bit more. Gary Graffman has appeared with every major American orchestra and at such summer music festivals as Tanglewood, Meadowbrook, Hollywood Bowl, and Blossom. His first round-the-world tour took place in 1958 when he performed in Europe, India, Hong Kong, the Philippines, Australia, New Zealand, and the United States. Here again for a solo bow is Gary Graffman. And apparently the applause of our audience will once again recall our soloist, Gary Graffman, and here he is again with conductor Sir Georg Solti. Once more, the members of the Chicago Symphony stand and share the applause with Gary Graffman and Sir Georg. You're listening to a broadcast of a complete concert by the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. This broadcast made possible by a grant from Standard Oil Company, Indiana.